Picture this. It's 11 p.m. You've just finished a 12-hour shift. You walk into your own kitchen, and the entire countertop is soaked. Not damp. Soaked. Puddles pooling around the coffee maker, water dripping onto the floor. And you know exactly who did it, again, because he does it every single time he sleeps over. Now, most people would just sigh and grab a rag. I didn't grab a rag. I grabbed my sister's towel, and I've been drying his mess with it for 2 months. She has no idea, and honestly, I don't think I've ever felt more petty or more satisfied in my life. If you've ever lived with someone who treats your home like a hotel room they don't have to clean, someone who takes and never once considers what it costs you, you're going to feel this story in your bones. This is a tale about boundaries, disrespect, and one of the pettiest, most quietly brilliant acts of domestic justice you'll ever hear. So hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and let's get into it. The setup. Let me introduce you to the cast of this story, because context is everything here. I'm 24. My sister is 28. 4 years apart. But honestly, we've always been close. Closer than a lot of siblings manage to stay once they become adults. When our parents decided to buy us an apartment together instead of splitting the money for 2 separate places, it felt like a gift wrapped in trust. A shared space. A shared responsibility. That was the unspoken deal. For the first year, it worked exactly the way you'd hope. We split chores. We respected each other's stuff. It was genuinely easy. Then my sister started her medical specialization. If you know anyone in medicine, you know what that means. 30-hour shifts. Sleeping at the hospital more nights than she sleeps at home. Days where she doesn't have the energy to boil water, let alone scrub a bathtub. And I want to be very clear about something before this story goes any further. I don't resent her for that. I actually admire the hell out of her. She's building a career that saves lives, and somebody has to keep the home running while she does it. That somebody became me. So I picked up the slack. All of it. Laundry, dishes, floors, the bathroom, grocery runs, the works. Did I love it? No. But I understood it. There was a logic to it, an unspoken contract. I'll carry the house, because you're carrying something heavier. But here's the thing about unspoken contracts. They only work if both people, even indirectly, honor them. And that's where he comes in. The antagonist. My sister's boyfriend. I'll just call him the Manbaby, because at this point that's basically his government name in my head, started staying over about 3 nights a week. Which, fine. He's her partner. This is her home too. I'm not the fun police. What I am, apparently, is the only person on planet Earth who understands that a sink has edges, and that water, when it touches those edges, should not be allowed to simply live there forever. Every single time. And I want you to hear the weight of that word, every single time. This man used our bathroom sink. He left the countertop drenched. Not a few drops. Not, oh, he was in a rush. I mean a small localized flood event. Water pooling around the toothbrush holder. Water dripping steadily off the edge of the counter onto the tile floor, so that some mornings I'd walk in and my socks would get wet just from standing there. I remember the first time I really clocked it. I'd just mopped the bathroom floor the night before, on my knees, tired, doing my part of our unspoken deal. I walked in the next morning, half asleep, reaching for my toothbrush, and my elbow landed in a puddle. I stood there for a second, just staring at it, genuinely baffled. How? How does a grown man leave a countertop looking like a crime scene from a water damage insurance claim? Does he wash his whole arm up to the shoulder in there? Is he headbutting the faucet? At first I laughed it off. I told myself it was a one-time thing. Then it happened the second time he stayed over. And the third. And by the 5th week of this pattern, laughing had curdled into something much heavier sitting in my chest every time I opened that bathroom door. A hot, prickling irritation that I could feel behind my eyes before I even saw the water. The escalation. I want to paint the emotional picture here, because I think a lot of you know exactly this feeling. The slow burn of being the only one who seems to notice, or care, that a shared space is being disrespected. Every wet countertop felt less like an accident and more like a message. Your labor doesn't matter enough for me to correct a 2-second habit. I wasn't asking him to deep clean the bathroom. I wasn't asking him to fold towels into little origami swans. I was asking him to wipe up his own water. That's it. That's the entire bar, and he couldn't clear it. So, because I try to be a reasonable person before I become a petty one, I went to my sister. I sat her down one evening when she actually had a night off, and I kept my tone light, non-confrontational. Hey, can you maybe mention to him that he should wipe down the sink after he uses it? It's getting the floor wet too. It's kind of a lot. And here's the moment the story really turns. She looked at me, almost apologetically, and said, "He has ADHD. He'll probably just forget. I don't want to nag him about it." I remember sitting with that sentence for a second, feeling something cold slide down my spine. Because, and let me be careful here, since I know ADHD is real and I'm not here to mock anyone's diagnosis, asking an adult to wipe up water he created in a home that isn't even his is not an unreasonable accommodation. It's a basic act of respect. And my sister, exhausted, guilt-ridden from being gone so much, wasn't defending him because she thought I was wrong. She was defending him because it was easier than having an uncomfortable conversation, which meant, functionally, the message I received was, "Your frustration matters less than his comfort." That stung. That stung a lot more than a wet countertop ever could. The turning point. I didn't yell. I didn't slam a door. I'm not built that way. And honestly, this story isn't about a screaming match. It's about the quiet, simmering decision I made standing in that bathroom, staring down at yet another puddle, my patience finally, fully spent. I remember thinking, fine, if my effort isn't going to be respected with a conversation, it's not going to be respected with a rag either. I want you to understand, I wasn't trying to start a war. I wasn't going to confront him directly and make things awkward for my sister. I wasn't going to let the mess sit there and rot, because I still have to live in this apartment and use this bathroom. I needed a solution that let me keep my sanity, keep the peace, and, if I'm being fully honest, give myself some tiny, private sense of justice. And that's when my eyes landed on it. Hanging on the towel rod, soft, clean, freshly washed, my sister's towel. The plan. Here's the beautifully petty logic that unfolded in my head in about 4 seconds flat. My sister wouldn't confront her boyfriend. Fine. He doesn't have his own towel here. He's not a resident. He's a guest. So there's nothing of his to grab. Also fine. But there was, conveniently, a soft, absorbent, perfectly good towel just hanging there. Her towel. So the next time I opened that bathroom door and saw the counter glistening like a tiny lake, I didn't hesitate. I reached over, grabbed her towel off the rod, and used it to mop up every last drop of his mess. The counter, the faucet base, the floor, if it had gotten hit too. All of it, wiped clean with her towel, then I hung it right back up. Slightly damp, slightly used. Exactly where it had been. I remember standing back afterward, looking at the now spotless counter, and feeling this warm, unexpected bubble of satisfaction rise in my chest. It wasn't rage anymore. It was something quieter and, frankly, way more fun. The feeling of finally doing something about it, even if no one else would ever know. The pattern sets in. From that point on, it became routine. He'd sleep over, he'd flood the sink like clockwork, and I'd walk in, sigh, grab her towel, and clean up after him with it. No extra rag. No extra effort. Why would I dig through the closet for a cleaning cloth when the exact tool for the job was hanging right there, 3 feet away, already damp from someone else's carelessness? There's a specific kind of joy in doing something quietly rebellious that nobody else can see. Every time I wiped that counter down with her towel, I felt this little internal smirk. Not because I wanted to hurt my sister. I love her. This was never about her. But because in some small, symbolic way, I was making the consequences of the household's negligence land exactly where the negligence had been excused. If nobody was going to hold him accountable directly, the least the universe could do was make sure the cleanup didn't cost me any extra effort or supplies. And here's the detail that makes this so deliciously petty. Neither of them ever noticed. Not once. My sister never asked why her towel occasionally felt a little damp when she grabbed it. He certainly never realized that the very towel drying his face or his hair, days later, had spent time mopping up the mess he made and never bothered to clean himself. There was no big blowout. No dramatic reveal where I stood in the kitchen and announced my crime to a shocked audience. This isn't that kind of story, and honestly, that's what makes it so relatable. Most of us don't get a cinematic confrontation. What we get is small, private wins that let us reclaim a sliver of control in a situation we can't fully change. Every time I dried that counter with her towel, I wasn't just cleaning. I was reasserting, to myself, that my effort in that apartment had value, even if the two people benefiting from it wouldn't acknowledge it out loud. I was quietly refusing to let his carelessness cost me anything extra. No new rag, no wasted time hunting for supplies, nothing. Just his mess, cleaned by the belongings of the person who refused to hold him accountable. It became, weirdly, one of the most satisfying rituals of my week. I'd hear him leave in the morning, walk into the bathroom already half smiling, grab that towel off the rod like a tiny weapon of justice, and restore order to my kingdom. The closest thing this story has to a gotcha moment came about 2 months in, when my sister actually had a rare day off and was getting ready for a shower. She grabbed her towel off the rod, paused for half a second, and said, almost to herself, "Ugh, this feels kind of damp already." I was standing in the hallway. I just shrugged. "Probably just humidity in here," I said, perfectly calm, perfectly innocent. She didn't push it. She never will know. And there is something deeply, quietly hilarious about the fact that the solution to her boyfriend's mess has been drying itself, unknowingly, on her own towel this entire time. An invisible little cycle of consequences that only I can see. That, right there, is the payoff. Not an explosion, not an apology. Just me, standing in a hallway, holding in the world's smallest, most satisfying laugh. At the end of the day, this isn't really a story about a wet countertop. It's a story about what happens when your effort in a shared space goes unacknowledged, and how sometimes the healthiest way to cope isn't a screaming match or a moving out spree. It's finding a small, harmless, almost artistic way to make peace with the unfairness while still protecting your own sanity. I'm not saying it's the most mature solution in the words.